Ness just shocked everyone on the Yukon. The claim everyone abandoned, called the Dead Zone by locals, has just produced over $70 million worth of gold. Crews who wrote it off years ago can't believe what they're seeing as Rick's team uncovers pay streaks deeper than anyone expected. Using reworked wash plants and ground radar scans, Rick targeted layers others missed, dense compact gravel holding trapped fine gold and hidden veins. Once the sluices ran, the gold count jumped overnight. By week's end, the haul broke every forecast, rewriting what miners thought was possible on that ground. This wasn't luck. It was strategy. Rick analyzed old survey maps, corrected drainage paths, and hit the untouched pay line sitting just below previous dig depth. What the rest of the camps left behind, Rick turned into a record-breaking payout. It's proof that in gold mining, the real treasure isn't just the dirt. It's the data, persistence, and guts to go where everyone else quit. Like and subscribe to see how Ness pulled $70 million out of the ground no one believed in. The Yukon looks dead, a wasteland of rusted pipes, half-buried sluices, and skeletal machinery frozen in time. Locals call it Dead Man's Ground, a claim so cursed that 3 crews went bankrupt trying to mine it. The permafrost swallowed everything they left behind, turning the site into a monument of failure. But then, against every warning, Ness rolls in, alone, determined. Everyone said he was finished after last season. Too much debt, too many setbacks. But there's something in his eyes this time, something burning. Rumors whisper through the camps of a deep channel, one never reached by the old diggers. Buried beneath ancient glacial rock, Rick bets it all, mortgages his gear, pulls private loans, every last cent tied to a hunch he can't even prove. The crew stares at him like he's lost his mind. Machines stall in the frozen muck, diesel drums run dry, but Rick doesn't blink. He's not chasing luck this time. He's chasing proof that the ground everyone gave up on still hides something alive beneath the frost. Days later, while scavenging an old shack near the creek, Rick finds something strange wedged behind a cracked beam. A notebook, half-eaten by water and time. The cover reads, K Beats, 1979. Inside, hand-drawn contour sketches mark out a fault line no government survey ever recorded. Faded notations suggest a buried channel, 160 feet below where previous miners stopped. The handwriting is rough but deliberate. This wasn't guesswork. This was a map. Rick spreads the pages on the hood of his dozer under a flickering floodlight. The crew gathers around. Some laugh, calling it a hoax. But when Rick overlays the drawings on his sonar data, the lines match almost perfectly. The same dips, the same bends, the same invisible corridor no one thought existed. Suddenly, the claim isn't dead. It's whispering secrets through layers of frozen mud. Morning breaks with the growl of engines. Bulldozers cut into the frostbitten soil, ripping away decades of frozen overburden. Metal groans, hoses burst, and bearings freeze solid, but nobody stops. Rick works 20 hours straight, mud caked to his boots, eyes locked on the trench. The first test pan brings only flecks, barely enough to cover a fingertip, but it's enough to keep the fire alive. Still the fuel's running out, morale's dropping fast. Rick calls in an old friend, Freddie Dodge. Freddie walks the cut, studies the walls, and finally points his finger down. You're sitting on something dense at 140 feet. That's all Rick needs to hear. Meanwhile, whispers spread. Investors, rivals, old claim jumpers waiting like vultures, betting Rick would burn through his last dollar before hitting pay dirt. But they didn't see what he saw on the monitors, the faint echo in the scan, the subtle shift in mineral density. Something was down there, something heavy. Rick didn't slow down. The lights stayed on through the night. The machines never stopped. Guided by the readings, drilling rigs punched deeper into the permafrost, their steel teeth grinding through layers untouched for centuries. Each turn of the bit echoed the tension above until finally it locked against something solid, compacted blue clay. Every miner knows that color, the mark of an ancient, untouched riverbed. Data from the boreholes spiked off the charts, and sonar imaging confirmed it. A split current, curved like a serpent, running directly beneath the old camp. The forgotten river that once carved the Yukon now sleeps beneath Rick's claim. The samples come up trembling in the cold air, cores packed with coarse gravel and faint glimmers that don't lie. Even under a thin film of mud, gold flakes flash in the light like veins of lightning. The geologists can barely believe it. The density readings suggest a pocket larger than anything ever registered in the area. Rick doesn't hesitate. He orders a vertical trench straight down, ignoring every safety regulation, every warning about pressure buildup and groundwater collapse. The crew protests, the foreman curses under his breath, but Rick's voice cuts through the wind. If we stop now, we lose everything. The excavators drop their buckets in sequence, peeling back the ground layer by layer. Hydraulic lines hiss, sensors scream under the strain, and mud slurries boil at the edges as groundwater seeps in. Then, suddenly, the sluice run changes color. Black muck replaced by glimmering streaks of pure gold. Cameras catch it live, bright, molten lines racing down the riffles like liquid sunlight. The crew stands frozen in disbelief. This isn't a trick of light. It's the ground finally bleeding gold. Rick watches in silence, the corner of his mouth lifting as if he knew this was coming all along. But the system can't handle it. The old wash plant chokes under the sheer weight of material, the pumps clogging with heavy slurry. That's when Rick signals to bring in something no one has ever seen before. A machine built in secret, away from the cameras during the long Yukon winter. He calls it the Titan Reclaimer. A monster of steel and innovation, the Titan is a hybrid built with Freddie Dodge's engineering brain and Juan Ibarra's custom mechanics. It's fitted with twin centrifugal spirals that spin out clay and magnetite while isolating micrograin gold at 3 times the normal rate. Every bolt gleams, every weld burns with purpose. The crew stares at it like it's from another world. When the first bucket load drops into its feeder, the sound changes, a deep, resonant hum like the earth itself answering back. For the first few minutes, it's chaos. Tailings overflow, pumps rattle, gold sensors redline. The sluice mats glow under the floodlights, so rich in concentrate that it looks unreal. Juan laughs over the comms, shouting above the roar. Rick's literally flooding the Yukon with gold dust. The data confirms it. Output is off the charts. They're recovering more in one day than they did all of last season combined. The Titan Reclaimer doesn't just work. It devours the earth. Word spreads fast. Too fast. Within a week, rival miners begin showing up at the ridgelines. Their trucks sit silent. Binoculars trained on Rick's operation from miles away. Some even launch drones at dawn, circling the cut, until Rick's crew shoots them down with high-pressure water hoses. Rumors sweep through Dawson City. Ness is pulling ounces like candy from gravel. Investors start calling, news crews sniff around, and the tension in camp thickens. Rick knows what attention brings: lawsuits, sabotage, government eyes, so he locks the place down. Gates welded, drones banned. Guard dogs posted by the generators. The once friendly site now feels like a military zone. Floodlights sweeping across frozen mud while the Titan thunders through the night. Even the sound of it has changed. The deep mechanical rhythm now pulses like a living thing. Then, strange things start happening after dark. The ground begins to tremble. Faint at first, like distant thunder, then stronger, rhythmic, alive. The seismographs show erratic movement directly under the cut. Underground water pressure is shifting, carving new paths as the ancient channel wakes up for the first time in millennia. The vibrations rattle the containers, send tools clattering to the ground. The crew wants to halt, to reassess before the trench collapses. Rick tightened his gloves and walked toward the edge of the pit, the roar of the Titan echoing behind him. He stared into the moving mud and said quietly, "If it's moving, it means we're close." No hesitation, no fear, because deep under that restless ground, beyond the tremors and the noise, he knew the main vein was waiting, the one that could change everything. The night stretched on, lights cutting through the darkness, machines carving deeper into history. At first, the tremors were subtle, almost rhythmic, blending with the groan of steel and churn of mud. But then the vibrations began to sharpen, a low rumble turning into a rolling pulse beneath the excavation. Buckets shivered against the frozen walls. Hydraulic lines hummed under tension. Every operator felt it. The ground itself was waking, responding to the relentless bite of the machines. Day 41 arrived cold, relentless, and loud. The Titan reclaimer groaned in sync with the excavators chewing through the trench, each bucket load heavier than the last. The ground trembled from the constant motion, but no one paid attention, until it wasn't background noise anymore. A deep crack echoed across the pit like a rifle shot. Then another. The north wall shivered violently before giving way. A slab of frozen clay, 20 tons thick, sheared off and collapsed into the trench, swallowing an excavator whole. Hydraulic lines whipped through the air like snakes, bursting and spraying crimson fluid across the mud. Alarms blared. Radios exploded with shouts. Rick sprints toward the chaos, ignoring the warning screaming through his headset. The trench is flooding fast. Mud, gravel, and slurry surging upward as the wall gives way. The operator's cab is half buried, its lights flickering under the sludge. Without a second thought, Rick dives in. The water burns like ice. He pounds against the door with a crowbar, forcing it open just enough to drag the dazed operator free as another section of wall breaks loose above them. They stumble through waist-deep muck, barely clearing the pit before the ground behind them collapses entirely. The roar is deafening, like the earth itself tearing open. For hours, the crew fights to stabilize what's left. Pumps whine, floodlights swing wildly, and the Titan stands silent for the first time in days. When dawn finally cuts through the fog, the destruction is staggering. A quarter of the pit is gone, twisted machinery buried under a mound of sludge. But as the sun hits the debris, something unexpected flashes back. A shimmer, subtle at first, then blinding. Gold, not flakes, not dust, chunks, pebbles, flakes, and solid veins packed tight within the collapse. What nearly killed them just tore open the Earth's final secret. Samples from the debris come back with numbers no one believes. The gold content isn't just high, it's record-shattering. Core analysis shows 1,580 ounces per 100 yards of gravel, 10 times the richest ground anyone's mined in the Yukon this decade. The deposit stretches across nearly 200 meters, a glacial pocket untouched for 10,000 years, sealed under layers of pressure and frost. The wall that collapsed didn't destroy their operation. It uncovered the mother lode. Within hours, the Titan reclaimer is roaring again. Trucks line up, dumpers run non-stop, and the air thickens with the metallic tang of wealth. Cleanup after cleanup yields pounds of raw gold, so much that Rick has to start melting bars on site just to keep up. Every pan glitters, every sluice overflows. The crew stops talking about ounces. They talk in pounds now. Some can't even process what they're seeing. Under the harsh floodlights, the runoff turns liquid gold, glowing as it pours through the chutes like molten fire. Rick stands at the edge of the platform, hands black with grease and mud, recording a private message on his phone. His voice is low, calm, almost reverent. "This isn't just pay dirt," he says. "It's history rewriting itself." Behind him, the Titan hums like an engine from another age, chewing through the ancient channel that refused to die. But history never stays hidden for long. As word leaks out, the vultures arrive. Corporate mining firms begin circling overhead, survey drones buzzing through the sky despite the no-fly zone. Some land agents send polite letters offering to partner with Rick on further exploration. Others skip the niceties. Anonymous messages arrive at night, warnings disguised as legal threats, citations for imaginary environmental breaches. Rick's lawyer calls it a coordinated squeeze designed to push him off the claim before he can cash out. It doesn't work. Rick knows something they don't. The ground he's on isn't under their jurisdiction. His research into the old records paid off. This land sits in a gray zone left over from a 1950s boundary dispute. No company owns it. No government department has clear authority over it. It's a loophole carved by history and forgotten by bureaucracy. In other words, it's his. Still, the pressure builds. More drones, more men on ridgelines, even whispers of government inspectors preparing to shut him down. Rick doesn't wait for permission. He switches the entire operation to night mode. Radio silent, lights covered, engines muffled with custom dampers. The Titan runs under tarps like a ghost, its glow hidden from the sky. Every ounce they pull now goes straight to the on-site refinery, melted, cast, and sealed in marked bars before dawn. The weather turns harsh, snow pushing in early, covering the site in a thin white shroud that hides their tracks. Rick and his crew move like shadows between floodlights, silent, exhausted, but relentless. The gold keeps coming. Crate after crate disappears into the dark, loaded into unmarked trucks that vanish down the frozen highway before sunrise. By the time the inspectors finally arrive, clipboard men in reflective vests, corporate reps in clean boots, the site looks deserted. Machines idle under tarps, generators cold, the air still thick with the scent of diesel and fire. The pit is flooded, the trench filled with ice and silence. They take photos, jot notes, threaten citations, but it's too late. Half the gold is already gone. Melted, poured into bars, stamped with nothing but serial numbers, and the initials RN stored somewhere far from the Yukon, somewhere untouchable. The officials left empty-handed, the rival companies furious, and Rick's camp quiet once again. Only the faint vibration under the ground remained, the ghost of a channel that had surrendered its heart to the one miner stubborn enough to believe it still had life left. The operation was far from over, but from here on, everything changed. Rick Ness wasn't just chasing gold anymore. He was fighting to protect what he'd already taken from the earth itself. The floodlights hummed softly over the pit where the wall had collapsed, casting a dim halo across frozen mud and fractured clay. Beneath it all, the rest of the channel lay hidden, deeper still, waiting. Rick wiped his hands on his jacket, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. He didn't smile. He just nodded once, as if answering something no one else could hear. The ground had spoken, and he wasn't done listening. By nightfall, the team moved into action. Storm clouds rolled low over the Yukon, thunder masking the hum of engines. A convoy of unmarked trucks rumbled through the mud, headlights off, escorted by armed guards in black rain gear. The site was locked down tight. No cameras, no chatter, no trace left for satellites to track. Under floodlights muted by fog, gold bars were loaded one by one into reinforced crates, each weighing 50 pounds and stamped only with 2 words burned into the steel. Project Titan. The rain hammers down as forklifts lift the final pallets into the trucks, the gleam of raw gold glinting beneath the tarps. Helicopters hover in the distance, blades chopping through the storm. As soon as the convoy clears the ridge, the choppers descend, cargo slings dropping into the mud like metallic claws. Crates are hooked, lifted, and carried toward a private airstrip carved into the wilderness, where a C-130 transport waits with engines already roaring. Every move is timed to the second. Every route pre-cleared and encrypted. Rick oversees the entire operation from a floodlit platform, face streaked with rain, jacket zipped to the chin. There's no celebration, just a quiet, exhausted satisfaction. The gold is leaving the ground it came from, finally free after 10,000 years sealed in frost. Rumors ripple through Dawson within hours. Some say the load is headed for a private refinery in Switzerland. Others swear it's bound for a vault in Iceland. Within 48 hours, reports surface that a European buyer received a shipment matching the Titan's estimated weight. Officially, Rick declares just under 70 million in total output. But insiders, especially those who handled the melts, whisper that the real number could be twice that. No one can prove it, and no one dares to ask. By the time the storm clears, the camp is empty. Machines silent, tracks washed away. When the season ends, Rick Ness is gone. No forwarding address, no announcement, not even a goodbye. Discovery crews arrive 2 weeks later, ready to film a victory season. But what they find looks more like an erasure. The pit is flooded to the brim, the machinery dismantled, the access roads sealed off with welded gates. It's as if the operation never existed. The only clue left behind is a single steel beam jutting from the mud, etched with 6 words in grinding torch marks: Dead Man's Ground, paid in full. Months pass. Snow buries the claim, turning the site into a white wasteland once more. Yet locals keep talking. Some swear that at night, when the wind shifts just right, they can still hear the faint thrum of engines under the frozen soil, like something still moving down there. Then, a geologist surveying old Yukon data flags an anomaly, a dense magnetic field beneath the site that shouldn't exist. When new scans are run, the image shows an enormous oval void, perfectly symmetrical, far too smooth to be natural. Some scientists call it a collapsed quartz dome. Others, quietly, suggest it's something else, perhaps an ancient structure buried and forgotten before the last ice age. Analysis of the recovered gold deepens the mystery. Traces of platinum and iridium appear in the assays. Rare elements linked to meteoric impact zones, not typical river gold. The discovery rewrites geological maps and ignites a frenzy. Within weeks, a new Yukon rush begins. Dozens of miners flood the valley, chasing the invisible river that Rick Ness woke from its icy tomb. But none of them find what he did. The magnetic readings persist, the channel remains sealed, and the ground, once torn open by machines, grows quiet again. The legend spreads faster than the truth, that Rick Ness didn't just strike gold, he unearthed something older, something that was never meant to be disturbed, sleeping beneath the permafrost long before men came looking for fortune.